Sasha Costa with the Media Heroes and Grit Realty. I'm also a board member of the Pearland Chamber of Commerce. This is another episode of Chamber Connects. So you are watching this on demand as we are about to have interviews with our state reps candidates and actual state reps. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and introduce the individuals that are here with us today. I am going to start out by introducing Mark Smith, our 2020 chairman of the Pearland Chamber of Commerce. And you're muted, Mark.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'm Mark Smith. I'm the current chair of the Pearland Chamber of Commerce. Definitely looking forward to hearing from our state representatives and going from here.
Thank you so much, Mark. Next, I'd like to introduce our president and CEO, Carol Arts-Buchek.
Thank you, Sasha. Happy Thursday, everybody, and welcome to the 34th program of our Chamber Connects. We have changed them over for our candidate interviews, so you can get to know the candidates running for public office. And also, these are not debates, they are interviews. It's all about them and their platform, so please pay attention. And just to let you know, my name is Carol Arts-Buchek. I'm president and CEO of the Pearland Chamber. I'm the team leader here for the staff. The Chamber has been building business leaders and communities since 1963, and we have always had some sort of candidate forum to bring the candidates to not only our members, but for the community at large and our residents. So this platform has been great for more people to get to know the candidates running, in this case for state rep. And again, this is an interview format, not a debate. And again, it's about learning about each candidate. Thank you for listening in today. And by the way, there are some candidates that are not on the program today, and they will be allowed to answer the questions that will be posted on this Facebook account.
Thank you. So like Carol said, there's actually some House seats that represent pieces of Pearland. So the Texas House of Representatives District 27, we have Ron Reynolds, who's not joining us today, and Tom Vivripin, who's also not joining us today. And then for District 129, we have Dennis Paul and Kayla Alex, who's also not joining us today. And then for Texas House District 29, with us today, we do have Ed Thompson and Travis Bolt. So thank you all for being with us today. What we would like to do is give you 5 minutes as an intro, and then we are going into some questions. So what I'd like to do is let me go ahead and start with Dennis, if you would please would give us 5 minutes of an intro.
Thank you, Sasha. First of all, it's glad to be here and speak again to a lot of the great members that's in our Pearland community, a part of our district, and everything that the Pearland Chamber that you've done. It's a lot of work since 1963, she just said. So thanks for the work that you've done in your community and the work that you've done to make sure and grow Pearland into a vibrant community that it is today. I just want to say real quickly, I don't know if I need the full 5 minutes, but my name is Dennis Paul. I'm the current state representative for House District 129. I'm in my 3rd term, and it's a great honor to serve House District 129 in the state legislature. I am an engineer, and I'm the only professional engineer in the entire legislature, so it's great to represent that profession as well. You know, I always tell everybody that it's engineers make great legislators. One, we're trained how to identify problems. 2, we're trained to solve problems. And 3, we're trained to do it in a cheap manner. So what more else do you want out of a legislator? I'm a native Houstonian, native to the district where I'm at. So I've lived my whole 58 years here in this area, right by this district. I tell the wife it's a pretty boring life. I've just, my whole life I lived within a mile of the railroad tracks running up Highway 3. So, but it's been a great ride. Went to South Houston High School, graduated from San Jacinto Junior College, and then on to the University of Houston, where I got a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and a Master's of Science in Civil Engineering. and I've been working as an engineer for the last 35 years. And I've been running my own business located out here in Webster, Texas, for almost 20 years. So I've been hiring people and working and growing our community here in the Clear Lake area, which is the heart of my district. I've been a long-term activist. I was 20 years as a precinct chair. I was 8 years serving on our state Republican Executive Committee. And now, like I said, in my third term as a state representative. I think House District 129 is well served by keeping somebody with the experience and the knowledge that I have to do this job. I think next session, we're gonna have a lot of issues that we're gonna have to really fight and look after. Number one is gonna be the budget, with the economy having issues going through an unprecedented pandemic. Although it's great to see how this recession is bottoming out and we're starting to climb out of it, especially as Texas is one of the first to climb out of these things, and House District 129, one of the first in the state of Texas. It's great to see us starting to come out of it, but we're gonna have to have some tough budget issues to go through. So you really need to have some experience of persons that know the budget, knows what's going on, and knows how to make the tough decisions to get it through. Last session, we made tremendous strides in really funding education and getting the education we want. We gave teachers all raises to make sure that the teachers are rewarded the way that we want to make sure that they're rewarded for this state. And we made those raises merit-based. So it's really those people that are really performing. I don't know if y'all heard that, but I'm right next to Ellington Field. So the Jets are practicing for the air show this weekend. So you're gonna have a lot of jets fly by. But anyway, like I was saying, these raises are merit-based. So teachers are able to really get tremendous salary if they perform and make things happen. Even benefits for them to go into the inner city communities where we know education is an issue and really turn things around. So it's just been a program that's worked in other parts of the state fantastically well. And so we're trying to promote that all across the state. But we're gonna make sure and keep our commitment to education, and we're not without raising taxes and making sure we get the things done that we can need. I know from last session, we're gonna have to issue with the rainy day fund to make sure and get our budget taken care of, and then going forward, tightening the belt, making things happen. Let's not spend extra money on things we don't need and take care of our necessities and get those things done. The other thing that we're gonna be working on is the whole pandemic issue. What worked and what hasn't worked. Was it great having the governor do these things? Was it great having county judges do these things? You can see a lot of issues that the citizens didn't like going on in Harris County. So we'll evaluate all that and how that's going to work, and we'll take the good and the bad and we'll work through it. Obviously we're going to work to make sure that there's PPE for everything going on forward. How is this testing going to work? How are we going to go forward with programs to get in and out of the citizens and make them well? Some of the stuff that I'm going to be working on also is our coastal barrier project that we've been working on. Senator Taylor and I passed a bill last session to really start working on the bookends of this event and what the Corps called the Sabine to Galveston, which was 3 different flood barrier projects, one in Brazoria County, one in Orange, and one in Jefferson. And so we got the money in for that. We got that started. And now we're going to take that further and how we're going to incorporate everything so we can get a continuous barrier across Galveston Bay, and we'll be able to protect all of Texans, all of this region, for 6 million people against a storm. Currently there's a storm out in the Gulf right now that's coming close to our way. Hopefully it'll miss us, but this shows you the need for what we need to get these things done. Last session, I was one of the primary authors of a flooding issue bill that we ended up passing in Senate Bill 7 and Senate Bill 8, and were constitutional amendments that we're going to take out, and how we're going to really look at watersheds as a whole. All of us that know on Clear Creek, there's 4 different counties and numerous water districts in this. This is going to set up a way to coordinate for a whole watershed all across the Clear Creek watershed and make sure that we get priorities done, make sure that nobody's being flooded from somebody upstream, make sure that all local partners are part of it. And this was a lot of what my legislation was to get in and get it done. So I'm glad to see that's happening. And I want to make sure and be back next session to make sure all this has been implemented the right way. Last year, I also had a bill to tighten down the building code so we can take care of the wind, the last element of these storms, and how it makes things done. So we're going to bring back with that bill and see if we can make sure we strengthen all of Texas communities to build right so we can resist the wind. So Sasha, with all that we're going to stop the storm surge at the edge of the coastal barrier. We're going to work with the flooding and the rain flooding from what we're doing with this rain protection and how we're making things work with these drainage issues and drainage problems, where we're also providing funds for that. We're working on trying to stop the wind damage from strengthening building codes. And one last thing that I'm going to work on next session with these hurricane issue is going to be the issue of, up in Houston and our areas, the worst part we're going to have is electrical problems and the grid being down. You won't be able to go get gas at the gas station because they don't have electrical power to make it work. So we're going to be working on issues to strengthen our grid, making things happen so that we can get through these storms and we get the power turned back on up in Houston. We can get gas stations up, we can get grocery stores, we can get drug stores up, so that folks in Houston will be over it, and we can get down and on the coast and help those in Galveston that are really in desperate need. So these are some of the stuff that we're going to be working on and making things forward. So we look forward to working with all y'all next session, as well as my desk mate, Ed Thompson, and getting these things done and work on it. So good seeing all y'all today, and I look forward to answering any questions that y'all have.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. I love this format because we get to learn more about each one of you, and there's some things that we typically would not know. So thank you for sharing so much. So next, we are going to jump to District 129, District 29. And let me go ahead and ask Travis if you'd please give us 5 minutes of your intro. And what I'll do is I'll try to keep us all one time. So when you get close to your 5 minutes, I'll just raise it perfectly. Thank you, sir.
Hey, and thanks for having me on, Sasha, and thanks for the Chamber for putting on these great educational forums. I'm happy to be a part of it. My name's Travis Bolt, and I run a small business here in town that supports disabled seniors. We provide in-home support to those who need more ongoing care than what they themselves or their families can provide. This has been my family's business for the past 17 years, and we've been servicing Brazoria County and 1,000 square miles of South Texas. And I've been in the director role for the past 8 years. This has given me a real front row seat to the failings and shortcomings of our healthcare system here in Texas. And there are a number of decisions which the legislature has made over the past decade, which have left seniors particularly and Texans in general high and dry. We've seen literally the worst senior care in the country develop here in Texas, and that's been an independent rated review. We have dead last rated senior care here in Texas. We have Medicaid reimbursement, which is rock bottom and 49th in the nation. We have the highest out-of-pocket expenses for any country or any state in the country, and more uninsured Texans than any other state. All of these problems have been left completely unaddressed by the legislature over the past decade, despite having $6 billion in federal grants passed down to us, specifically earmarked for these programs. So I've been working within this broken system for the better part of the past decade. And what I've realized is that in the private sector, I'd received 20 calls in a week. Families who are in distress, who are dealing with an elderly loved one, many times with dementia, many times with mobility problems, who didn't have access to the resources they need in order to care for that loved one. And of those 20 calls that I get, 2 of them would have the funds necessary to privately take care of their elderly loved one. 18 of those family members, I would have to pitch down to Medicare and Medicaid systems, which I know from experience in the industry do not cover the resources they need. And if they rely on the Medicaid state-funded programs, are literally the worst in the nation. These are places that nobody would be proud to keep their grandmother or grandfather. I'm an entrepreneur. I have a degree in economics, and I really see both the internal struggles of the healthcare system as well as the struggles every small business owner faces. So I know the struggles of making payroll and having to make hiring and firing decisions and how to compete in the marketplace. And I'm a strong proponent of a competitive marketplace driving the economy forward and making sure that Texas and the economy grow together through competition. Here in District 29, I'm running what is now the most competitive grassroots campaign that has ever existed in Brazoria County. We are 4 times larger than the last Democrat to run for this seat, And 90% plus of the donations that we've taken in are small dollar individual contributions from people who see the change that's possible in this district and are backing me and my campaign to push forward into the State House and bring change here to Texas. We are quickly becoming one of the most competitive races, and our polling is coming back with us polling neck and neck with Ed Thompson, the incumbent whose seat I'm running for. So I'm happy to answer whatever questions we have moving forward, and I'm looking very much forward to serving the residents of this district, regardless who you vote for in this election. The representative seat serves everybody. So my door is always going to be open, and I'm always willing to listen to people from both sides of the aisle, their questions and their concerns, largely because the problems that we face are bipartisan. When somebody doesn't have access to healthcare, when somebody loses their job because of the pandemic, and when people are facing all of these crises day in, day out, they don't care whether it's a Democrat or a Republican that's helping them. They just need help. And that's what I'm here to do, is provide the help that has been so lacking over the past 10 years to expand the healthcare system, to cover the people it needs to cover, and to improve our economy and dig us out of the hole that we've been left in by the last administration.
Thank you, Travis. We appreciate you. So next we have our incumbent for District 29, Ed Thompson. Ed, if you'd please give us 5 minutes of your open statement.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really great to be with you. Always great to be with the Chamber of Commerce. You know, my history here in Pearland goes back to 1982 when I opened my insurance agency here in Pearland, and very quickly after I became a small business person here in town, one of the things that I really wanted to do and felt like it was necessary to do was to join the Chamber of Commerce. I believe that it's a great way for small business people to be a part of an organization that promotes small business, promotes economic development. I had the great honor of being the chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and I tell you what, I learned a lot by interfacing with a lot of our small business people here in Pearland. So when I came to Pearland, the population of Pearland was 13,000 people. So over the years, I've seen a tremendous amount of growth in the community, in the area, and I've been a part of a lot of that opportunity that we've had to grow. As a lot of you know, I had the opportunity of serving as a school board trustee here in Pearland ISD, and this was in the mid-90s. Pearland ISD at that time we owned about 13 acres of property where the current C.J. Harris Elementary School is. And it was landlocked. We didn't even have a road to it at that time. So our job as a district was to try and prepare for the future. And I think that's what's really, really important is having vision about what the future looks like and what the opportunities that are going to be ahead of you and the challenges that are going to be ahead of you. So we went about purchasing property. We bought over 130 acres of land. A lot of people in the community thought we were crazy because they didn't see what we saw and what we were hearing from demographers. And today there's 4 schools that sit on that, on that property. So I really felt like that was a great beginning, an opportunity to serve in this community. I then went on, like I said, to be chair of the chamber. And then after finishing up that, I became a member of the Pearland Economic Development Corporation. And there, what I did was, I eventually became the president of that organization. And we worked very, very hard to bring in a lot of opportunity, growth, economic development growth into the city. During that time that I was there, it's sort of like planting crops, if you will, because you're planting those seeds and you're waiting for it to come up. Well, now if you go over to the lower Kirby area and see what's out there, that was a lot of the ground that we plowed back during that time when I was on the Economic Development Board, setting that up. We did a lot of that sort of preparation to get that there. And then after my time on that, I I ran for city council, and I served as a city council member and mayor pro tem under a very great mayor, Mayor Tom Reed. I had the opportunity to serve with him and to learn a lot about servant leadership through Mayor Reed and his service to our community. But there too, we were looking at ahead. We were looking at things that took place. One of the things that I always look at is the HEB that's on Pearland Parkway at 518. There was a lot of issues over zoning, and I worked very, very hard to get that zoning changed so that HEB could come in there. And if you drive along that road now and you see the development that's occurred there, I used to say, you know, there was about 15 or 16 cows that used to be on that property. And I think the city collected about $100 in property tax every year. And now look what it looks like. So just a lot of opportunities here in the community, lots of time spent serving the community. And it's always been a blessing to have an opportunity to serve. And I look forward to serving in the future. My website is edthompson29.com, and you can go there and see a lot about the things that we've done here in the, here in the community and during, the legislative session. So thank y'all.
Ed, thank you so much. So next, what I'd like to do is move to the next part of our interview, which is where we have provided all of you with a list of questions. And these questions, Carol has cards numbered from A to P, Alpha to Papa, and you will pick a letter, and we will go in order. And based on the letter that you pick, the questions that you have been provided, you won't know which questions they are. She will ask you the questions and you will answer for us. So what I'd like to do is, let me go ahead and start with Travis. Travis, if I could get you to pick a letter from A to P, and we'll provide you with the question.
No better place to start than A.
A, all right.
Okay, I just need to make a correction. The letters are A to Q.
Q.
Yeah, but this is letter A. Are you ready, Travis? Ready? What does the government need to do to prepare Texas for the next hurricane?
That's a really good question, and one that's on a lot of people's mind as we have two storms brewing out in the Gulf right now. I remember being in my home in Hurricane Harvey and watching floodwaters creep up my driveway. It was really actually a bonding experience with everybody else in my neighborhood. We feel kind of like we were hunkered down in the trenches for that storm. But we also saw how little that we've done to prepare for the increasing level of storms that honestly had not existed a generation ago. So we are seeing bigger and bigger storms, and we need proactive solutions and leaders who have their eyes on the problem with the hope of actually moving towards preventative measures to help deal with these issues locally. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to reevaluate the floodplain system. Floodplains that we're building homes on are based off of storms of the last century. So we need to come back in. We need to have accurate projections of where the storms in the upcoming century really are going to be, so that when we talk about a 100-year storm, we're really talking about a 100-year storm. We then need to further make sure that we're not developing new communities and new buildings into those high flood-prone areas. We need to engage in coastal barrier programs like Mr. Paul mentioned. These are going to require federal partnerships, but we need to harden our ports and our shipping channels and make sure that we are prepared to deal with storm surges, which honestly right now we just straight are not. If you listen to an environmentalist, Mr. Blackburn, he talks about the possibilities of a 15 to 20 foot storm surge coming up the ship channel and ripping tankers off their moorings, completely devastating the industrial sectors that are there, and the following cataclysm that comes out of that. We need to be preparing our ports to be able to withstand larger and larger storms, which we are going to see over the next century. We need to preserve our coastal wetlands, which means that not only do we have agriculture that's developed along these coastal plains, you can still raise cattle and raise rice on areas that we're preserving in a sustainable manner. But this is great because not only does it provide an increased barrier to a storm coming in, but preserved wetlands act as a carbon sink, which helps us pull carbon out of the atmosphere and address the root problem of these storms. And that honestly gets to the crux of it, because if we are just addressing the storm preparation and we're not addressing the existential problem of climate change, we're treating the symptom instead of the disease. Texas does not have a statewide plan to fight climate change, and we need one desperately. Our Environmental Regulations Committee has dropped the ball on this and refuses to prioritize a statewide plan to move our economy sustainably into the next century and make sure that we have ways of keeping our economy a robust energy producing sector, as well as staving off the worst impacts of climate change.
Thank you, Travis. And with that said, I should have said this earlier as well, gentlemen. What I'll do is I will have a timer on, and I'll ask you to please keep your answers to 5 minutes. When you are about 5 seconds away from 5 minutes, I will raise my hand so you know that you are reaching your time. So next, I'd like to ask Dennis if you would pick a letter from B through Q for your question.
Sasha, I thought they got 3 minutes.
Is it 3 minutes?
It's 3 minutes for the question.
I apologize. It's 3 minutes.
Sorry.
I'll take letter E.
E.
Letter E. If
That's
elected,
Liza and my daughter Elizabeth.
good. So it should be a good question for you.
I hope so.
If elected, what will be your top legislative priorities for your House district for the 2021 legislative session?
Great question. I do like that question. My top priority is going to be continuing working on this coastal barrier. You know, the thing that we're going to have to get done this session, and we've been getting great support from all the members in our region on this, but we got to get this coastal barrier thing done. We have to have fully set up a local entity that will be able to receive these funds from the federal government and operate and maintain this coastal barrier system as it goes through. And so that's what we're really working on now. In fact, the tremendous amount of the work that's been going on between my staff, Senator Taylor's staff, coming up with ideas, working out ideas. We've been working with groups like the Barrier Use Economic Partnership and the chambers in our area and the business and industry in our area, even coming up and describing, developing ideas about private entities that will make this happen and make it work. All the cities in the local area have all kicked in money to evaluate and further study ways that we've come up with. You know, if this project comes in $12 billion or so, the local match could be 40% of that. And so there's a lot of cost that's going to have to come in. The federal government could probably front load that the way they did for us due to the thankful work of Senator John Cornyn, who's also working with us to get this flood barrier project done. You know, we got that front loaded up, but we'll have to pay that back after a 40-year period. So we'll have time to work on the funding and make things happen to get that done if he stays in place. But so that's going to be our first one, making that happen, setting up that local legislation and getting things done to make sure that we can solve this most critical need for all of us. You know, like I always say, is that we can look back at some of the forefathers in Galveston where they put together and created a seawall that we have all known and lived in our whole lives that grew up here, been down that wall. And just tremendous effort that has done and the thousands of lives that it saved in Galveston after that devastating Great Galveston storm in 1900, where 6,000 to 8,000 souls lost their lives. After that, they've had no such incident. This is going to be able to protect our whole region of 6 million people, protecting all of Galveston Bay region for that. So this is what we in our generation are going to be able to stand up and say, this is what we have done for Texas going on in the future. And with y'all support, we'll make sure and get this thing done. And I feel very confident we're going to get it done this year, this session. So thank y'all for the question.
Thank you, Dennis, with time to spare. All right, next, Ed, all the way to Q, and A and E are taken.
Let's try C.
C. Okay.
Charlie.
C, if you could pick only one committee to serve on, what committee would that be and why?
Well, that's a great question. I do serve on a committee that right now that I think is very, very important to not only to House District 29, but to the entire Gulf Coast region and truthfully the entire state of Texas. In fact, you know, on the committee that I'm on right now, the Transportation Committee, I have an opportunity to work with a lot of the transportation folks here in the area. In fact, Representative Paul's wife, Eliza Paul, is the district engineer for TxDOT, and I have the opportunity to interface with her a lot in different meetings as we work through transportation issues here in the Houston area. And I really have a passion for this transportation issue because it really does add quality of life. It's a quality of life issue. People that are stuck in traffic, people that can't get to and from work and school and the things that they need to do, that's just not the way most people want to live. And so what we're working on right now is working on trying to open up opportunities here in House District 29, and I've been working very closely with TxDOT. One of the things that we did going back to the 288 roadway, as many of you know, that thing has been ongoing for many, many years, and so we worked very closely with TxDOT to get that done. And when it was originally brought up, they were going to build it without the flyovers that would go to the Beltway. And that would have killed the Brazoria County portion of that roadway. And so I fought very hard with TxDOT, went to TxDOT meetings, appealed to the commissioners, and actually went up and enlisted the help of Speaker Joe Strauss to help me with this. And we got the flyovers into that project. And as you drive down 288 today, you can see those opportunities that are going to be there for people to be able to traverse that roadway and to be able to get to and from work quickly. Also, the Grand Parkway, which is part of the, it was taken out of the Unified Transportation Plan, and we fought to keep that in there. We went up to Austin and worked our way through that whole process, and they actually, we had more people respond to that than TxDOT has ever had on any other project. And we got that back in the UTP, so I'm working on segment B, which will be a part of that Grand Parkway over in Alvin. We've worked with TxDOT on the 288 frontage road, which is very, very important to Pearland, as well as other projects around our district. So transportation is vitally important. It moves goods and it's an economic development tool and very important.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate you. All right. So that was Charlie, right, Carol? C is Charlie, the question? Right? Okay. So Travis, all the way to Q, and A, C, and D have been taken.
Let's go with B.
B, okay.
The letter B, what previous personal actions can you point to that exemplify why you are the ideal candidate for this position?
Thanks so much, Carol. Yeah. So my experience running a small business is the key and cornerstone of my qualifications for running for state representative, making sure that we have people who understand not just the service of providing something to the community, but also the logistics of handling stuff like payroll and taxes and balancing a budget and those sorts of things internally. When I started to move my priorities in addition to the private industry, I started looking for additional ways to serve my community. to help those 18 people that I couldn't service privately. I reached out and I found the Alzheimer's Association, and I started volunteering and fell in love with volunteerism, honestly. And what started as me teaching educational seminars through senior community groups and those sorts of things led to me hosting support groups where I physically was counseling seniors and their families who were dealing with Alzheimer's disease, and then eventually got involved with their legislative advocacy teams. Through the legislative advocacy team, I lobbied both state and federal governments on behalf of the Alzheimer's Association for expanded resource for this critical shortfalling that our government has left us in. At the federal level, those efforts resulted in almost $500 million being added to the federal budget to research Alzheimer's disease, and helped push forward at the state level the first Texas plan to combat Alzheimer's and secure its first $1 million to provide social support for families dealing with Alzheimer's disease, as well as training to first responders and adult protective services workers so they understood the complexities of Alzheimer's and how to deal with patients undergoing these key experiences. I've been involved with my community on a number of different levels. I've been a 7-year volunteer with the Houston Livestock Show at Rodeo. I'm vice president of the Community Assistance Providers at Pearland, which provides relief for short-term financial crisis to individuals in our community. And when the opportunity came to get involved and help push the needle in the 2018 election, I volunteered to chair the Beto O'Rourke grassroots headquarters here in Pearland, where we started engaging volunteers by the droves, knocked on thousands of doors, rang thousands of phones, and really got to know the activists here in our community who were so passionate about bringing sustainable change and into Brazoria County, and making sure that we had leadership that represented this huge changing dynamic growth that we have seen. Not many people realize Brazoria County and House District 29 specifically is majority minority these days. And we need representation for people who are willing to reach across the aisle, work with other communities other than where they've come from, and really make sure that everybody in this community has a seat at the table.
All right. Thank you, Dennis. All right. Next, we have Dennis, and A, B, C, and E have been taken. All the way to Q.
Well, give me P,
P.
since that was the end at one time.
P as in Paul. All right.
P as in Paul, yes. Okay, safety is a priority to me and my family. Can you share your thoughts on the rhetoric and efforts in some cities and states to defund law enforcement?
Yeah, sure. Number one, I signed a pledge saying that, we're going to be backing our law enforcement officers and make sure we protect them through everything as we go through. When you have situations where law enforcement are just snuck up behind and shot and assassinated on the streets of our cities, this is just nothing that's going to be acceptable. So we're going to make sure and protect them in everything that we do, and how we're going to work forward with that. And we're going to make sure that public safety is going to be our number one order. It's one of the few things that we have assigned our state government to make sure and do is take care of our public safety. And I'm a vice chair of our public safety committee. So it's good to make sure and oversee what we're doing on public safety and make sure that it's taken care of. And we've expanded the budget for DPS in the last 2 sessions to make sure that they have the equipment and materials to carry out their mission, that they have the equipment and safeguards to make sure they're protected while they do their mission. And we've been pushing that law enforcement have body cams to make sure that we can watch and see how things are going, so that make sure that rights of our citizens are protected as they go through. And we've also done a lot for education and training for law enforcement officials to make sure that they're trained and properly done to make things go through, and not have some cases this out of control cop in Minnesota that did. So we don't want to see those situations in Texas. We want to make sure that our police officers are safe. We want to make sure that they can continue to watch over our communities and keep our communities safe and go through the way that we want, so we can all live our lives, grow the communities that we want to have, and keep this Texas miracle growing. So thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate you. All right. Next, we have Ed Thompson from A through Q, we have taken A, B, C, D, and P already.
Okay, how about N like Nancy?
Nancy, okay?
N. Drainage and flood mitigation are important issues, especially post-Hurricane Harvey. Have you been involved in discussions or advocacy regarding Clear Creek and potential projects to improve the creek to prevent the flooding of homes in the region?
Well, yes, I certainly have. Number one, I think something that was said a little bit earlier, I want to clarify. Floodplains are actually developed by the National Flood Insurance Program. The Corps of Engineers is the one that draws those flood maps, and they're the ones that, we have to abide by what those flood maps say as far as the city goes and as far as development and that sort of thing. So having been on city council, certainly we worked very closely with the Corps of Engineers as we worked through Clear Creek, which Clear Creek is the one issue that has sort of existed here in our area and been worked on by the Corps of Engineers since we're really going back to about 1963, I think is when they first started studying Clear Creek. And we've really gotten very little done on that. And one of the reasons that I believe that that's the reason is because and I always use the example, I say, it's like if you were to build a house and you hired 8 contractors to build it. There's too many people that have got too much or involved in this thing, and yet there's a very little communication. And we actually had a bill in the last legislative session that we introduced. It didn't go anywhere, but it was the Clear Creek watershed bill. And what it would have done, would have given some oversight over that watershed, because it's just not Clear Creek. I mean, there are a lot of tributaries, creeks and that sort of thing that flow into Clear Creek. There's a lot of other entities that put water into that. If you look at Beltway 8 and all the areas along that creek that go in there, what we need is a lot of discussion around that. And that's something that, we've had that conversation. And in fact, I did pass a bill last session that, on Clear Creek right now, if DD4, which is our drainage district, wanted to go and clean out part of the creek, if a property owner didn't give them permission to do that, then they couldn't do it. And, so we basically passed a law that said that after giving them notice, and if they didn't allow them, then they could go on the property. Because to me, it was important that area be cleared out, so that if you're not wanting to clear out your part of the creek, that can cause problems for other people along the creek. So we need to talk about more opportunities to work together on the creek, but it also, I think we need some folks that can stand up and say, hey, this is what needs to be done, and there not be 8 different people trying to make a decision about this. So that's very, very important. We also, in the last session, passed Senate Bill 6, 7, and 8, which dealt with a lot of the statewide flooding mitigation. Also, some of the improving how emergency departments respond to flooding, and then also some of the Hurricane Harvey recovery. So yes, I've been involved in that, and being in the insurance business, I have quite a bit of knowledge about flood insurance and those issues around that.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate your answers. So here's what we have. I think what we'll do is we'll have another round of questions to the 3 of you. And then after that, Mark Smith will present one of the bonus questions, and the 3 of you will answer the same question. What do you think? Okay, so Travis, we have, again, A through Q, and A, B, C, E, N, and P are taken.
Let's go with Delta.
Delta, okay.
D. Any thoughts on how to tackle property tax relief for multifamily? Since our members do not get homestead exemptions or appraisal value caps, Do you see any path forward on the appraisal review boards or in the evaluation process?
Absolutely. And appraisal review is something that's going to be really important in helping make sure we have a balanced budget going forward. For those that don't realize, the same way that an individual property owner could go to your property, your appraisal district, and reevaluate or contest the valuation of your home, so can multi-million-dollar corporations when they come into town. Here in Brazoria County, we have seen a boom of growth. We've seen massive planned communities go in, and this growth is overwhelmingly individual single-family homes and multifamily apartment complexes. Unless we remove the ability for corporations to default down their taxes, the only place for city municipalities in order to get the funds they need in order to operate is to rely on property taxes for individual and multifamily homes. So the first step to providing property tax relief is to make sure that corporations are paying their fair share. But on a greater scheme of this, we need to make sure that we've got a balanced budget at the state level, and Democrats have a plan exactly on how to do that. We've got currently $3 billion a year of corporate welfare, which are going to oil and gas companies, which we get to put back on the bottom line if we remove those subsidies to oil and gas companies. We've got $6 billion that are being left sitting on the table with federal grants by the legislature's refusal to expand Medicaid, and we pipe hundreds of millions of dollars into a failed war on drugs and incarcerating nonviolent drug offenders that simply don't need to be spent there. We can move forward with a really bold progressive agenda and moving forward on climate change, forward on healthcare, forward on criminal justice reform, and all of these plans put money back on the bottom line so that, unlike the Republican solution to the budget deficits that we've seen in the past, we don't have to raise property taxes and we don't have to cut the education budget.
All right. Thank you, Travis. So next we have Dennis. And we have F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O left, and Q.
Well, I keep thinking Q, but I'm going to go H.
You're going to go H, okay.
Whoops. Okay, H. What in your background qualifies you for this position? That should be easy.
That's a great question. Well, some of this I answered in my my opening statement there, but I think what qualifies me, obviously, is your life experience. My life experience has prepared me well for being a legislator. First of all, growing up as a small child, my father was killed in a tornado. I got 3 brothers, so my mom raised 4 boys all by herself. And we had a very tough life and existence going through it after that point, from one that was well off to one that was extremely struggling as we went through life to get things done. And I know that my mom sacrificed a lot for us, but she taught us the value of a dollar, the values of how to make things done, the values of not spending money crazily or wasting money to get it done. So that was the first thing. Also, I put myself through college. Worked my way through school. Took me 7 years to get my undergraduate degree after I was working for a while and then going back to school and getting done off and on. So I know the values and struggles of times it takes for people to get up in the world and make it. And I know the policies that we have progressed in the Republican Party have really helped a lot of us get through that and able to step up to that next level. I know what it's like to run and operate a business, as I've run and operated my business now for almost 20 years. Operating an engineering business, that's one of the most successful engineering companies in Southeast Harris County, designing multi-story buildings and structures all across our region. So I know what it's like to meet payroll. I know what it's like to meet a budget. I know what the burdens of property taxes are. I know what the burdens of payroll taxes are. And I know what the burdens of overcost insurance and problems and insurance programs that cause destruction that is on our families and make things work. I also worked for 20 years as a precinct chair, elected to those 20 years, sometimes even having to campaign to be a precinct chair, meeting the citizens and meeting with us, making sure that we had fair and honest elections, not elections that people could steal, have problems with. We really trust our elections. I also served for 8 years on our state Republican Executive Committee, helping run our state party to make sure that we have good candidates, transparency, and good solid policies that we know will be able to project and make sure that families can grow and prosper and have opportunities like I have had in my life. And then I've served for 6 years in the legislature itself, being prepared through all my life experiences and working and lobbying with the legislature for years before I got here, knowing several of the members and knowing how it operates and works. So now when a chance and opportunity to hopefully will be chairman or something like that to be able to have a leadership role the next session to make things done. So I think my life and where I'm at sitting right now has prepared me to be a leader and a member of the legislature. And I think that we have a great preparation and ready to go, and we're ready to serve. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate your answer on that. All right, Ed, you're next. And we have FGIJKLMNOQ.
I'll take Dennis's cue.
All right.
Uh-oh. Q. If elected, what will be your top legislative priorities for House District 29 for the 2021 legislative session?
Well, that's a great question. One of the things that we've really got looking forward to is a shortfall in our budget, and that's going to be job number one for what we're going to be working on initially, is to find those areas, just like a family that goes through, looking for places to where they have to cut their own personal budget. The state's going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to work towards coming up with agencies that will have to operate with less money as we go forward, because we don't go out and borrow money. We don't have a printing press like they do in Washington, D.C., where they can just print money, and we're not going to be, we have to balance that budget. So it's one of the things that takes an awful lot of discussion in areas that we want to keep funding for education. We want to keep funding for transportation and infrastructure. Those are things that are vitally important as we continue to grow. In fact, I was on a phone call earlier this week with the governor, and he made the statement about the fact that we were going to see some of the most some of the biggest economic development in the next in 2021, because companies are wanting to leave these states that are in poor shape as far as they're constantly raising taxes. They're under the leadership that continues to put burdens on companies, continues to tax people out of their homes, continues to tax businesses, continues to overregulate, and they're wanting to come to Texas. But we have to keep that budget conservative so that we can continue to keep our taxes down, and we can continue to bring those businesses into Texas. And we've seen a lot of them that have left these states that have, in my opinion, some very, very poor ideas about how to run a state, because we get out of people's way. We allow free enterprise. We allow people to have liberties. And that's what Texas is all about. Texas is not only a state, but it's an idea. And it's an idea about how you can come to a state with just literally almost nothing and grow it into a multi-million-dollar company, because, you have the opportunity. You have the opportunity here in Texas that you don't have in some other states, because the state has their foot on your neck as a business person there. So those are a few things we really need to work on as far as budget, education, transportation. I do have some other bills that we've been working on. We've already got some bills in Ledge Council that we're trying to get done and out so that we'll be ready to go. So looking forward to serving. I appreciate this forum. Thank y'all, and I look forward to asking you for each and every one of you for your vote. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ed. So now we're going to move into the bonus round. All right. So we have 4 bonus questions. And I want to make this a little bit more different and fun for you. So Mark will have the option of asking, we're going to start with Travis, Dennis, and then Ed on this. And so we have 4 questions. And your flexibility is whatever question that Mark asks Travis next, as the next one, Dennis and then Ed, you have the option of answering the same question, or we also don't want to kick a dead horse if somebody over explains it, right? So you have the option of asking for another bonus question. So we're going to go through 1 round of bonus questions. So Mark, go ahead, and Travis, you're up.
All right, Travis. And they're not like they're tricky questions, so don't sweat it too much.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Mark.
Your volume needs to go up, Mark.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
No.
You're like in a tiny little jar.
All right. Hold on. Is this better?
No, it's like your microphone is low.
No, hold on.
No? Okay. Is it okay if I ask?
How about now?
All right. So, all right. I am going to ask the bonus questions. So the first bonus question is, and I'm just going to pick one, is, all right, Travis, do you believe that Texas cities should be required to provide taxpayer paid services to illegal immigrants?
To legal immigrants? Yeah, there's no reason why. I mean, legal immigrants are following every law to cross the border legally and try and become part of our society. Excuse me?
Illegal immigrants.
Illegal immigrants.
Yes.
I think it probably determines on which services that we're talking about. Something like your schools, it's really not practical to say like, okay, this family gets this service and this family doesn't. I also don't think it should be, a school teacher or a fire department's job to police immigration law and make sure that the fire they're putting out, because if you put out a fire for an undocumented family, you're helping every home around them. We're not just going to let those fires burn. The same way we're not going to, leave children uneducated to go just run the streets and get into trouble and not produce a bunch of innovative resources down the road. Now, I am a strong supporter of our legal immigration system, and we do need to do a better job of providing legal routes to joining our country. And truth be told, this has always been one of the strongest powers that America has had, is that people want to come here. Not every country has this. A lot of countries have to spend a lot of money in order to convince new talent and new labor to join their labor forces. So we're really blessed by the opportunity that a lot of people want to be here. We do need legal routes to immigration, so I strongly disagree with a lot of the actions that the administration has taken over the past 4 years to make legal immigration harder, such as removing asylum requirements and the Remain in Mexico policy. But yeah, I don't think it really should be our city's job to enforce federal immigration law. They're really not equipped to do that.
All right. So Dennis, you can answer the same question or ask for another question. I'll be glad to repeat the question for you.
Well, they'd be more interested in taking another question.
All right. So each year, the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association is discussed. There have been concerns that TWIA is not actuarially sound. What are your thoughts on the matter regarding the viability, and what changes would you support to the program?
Well, this is something we've been working on a lot. Part of House District 129 is in a TWIA sponsored area, and of course I know the entire county of Brazoria County is. And our engineering firm, we are windstorm certified inspectors listed, so we're very familiar with the whole process and have done a lot of those inspections. There's a lot of work that I think we need to do on the inspection program to make it easier and helpful to the citizens. And that's kind of a separate issue, but something that we really want to keep working on to make things go on with that inspection program and how it works. As far as the TWIA on those funds, we've passed several bills. In fact, we passed another one last session to work with the funding, this whole sandwich of how we're going to fund the program to make sure that it is sound. And I think the financial soundship, the gist of the question is sound, and that they are going to have the funds to get through an event as we go through them. The real tricky thing would be is if we get hit with 2 major hurricanes in the same year. Louisiana looks like they might be getting hit again with maybe another major hurricane tomorrow. So if we have those kind of situations, it's going to be a little bit tighter. But I think that we'll have the funds to make it work. But we've been on top of that and making sure that that sandwich is there. Right now, I think they have ability to fund. If the numbers close to this, around $6 billion worth of damage in expenses. Once you get into it, eventually it's going to start coming out of policyholders, which is something that we really want to try to avoid. But we'll make sure and get that done. Getting the whole state behind that funding sandwich is a difficult thing to do, because it's hard to go up to the panhandle and say, hey, this is something we got to do for all of us on this state to make sure it works. And they keep worried about, hey, that they're going to be on the hook for something down on the coast, which they're not. So I think it's funded. I think we're going to continue to make sure it's funded. I think there's a lot of reform that we need to do, especially with the inspection program, and also making sure they don't have runaway rate hikes like they've been wanting to do. In fact, legislation that I supported, we made sure and freeze their rate hike ability for the last number of years, even though the board's been meeting and trying to raise that rate without us or without approval, and we keep telling them that ain't happening. So we'll continue to work on that and watch that whole situation. So good question.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate you. All right, Ed, would you like a different question or the same question?
No, I want to add on to what the discussion about TWIA, because of naturally being involved in TWIA for many, many years here in the coastal, Brazoria County is a tier 1 county. And so it does impact a lot of our constituents. And one of the things that we've constantly talked about is, is the viability of TWIA, the funding of TWIA. And one of the things that I'd like to have some discussion about in the next legislative session is that it's looking at what TWIA will actually cover. Because right now it covers wind and hail. So if you have a hailstorm or a windstorm, it's going to cover that under that TWIA policy, because that is actually exempted from your, excluded from your homeowner policy. What I would like to see us discuss is that what we would cover under the windstorm, under the TWIA plan, would be what's called cyclonic wind. Cyclonic wind is actually hurricane force wind. So after it reaches a hurricane force, then it would actually, that's when the TWIA policy would come into effect. So if you have just a hailstorm, or you have a tropical storm that doesn't reach a cyclonic wind, that wouldn't be excluded from your normal homeowner policy. And what we would do there is with us just covering cyclonic wind, we would cut down on the amount of the cost of reinsurance, because what you're doing right now is you're reinsuring against the other wind and hail. So you cut down on the cost of reinsurance, which is a big portion of one of those tranches that you have to satisfy, in that TWIA. Plus, I think what we need to do is actually make these companies, be involved in this. I mean, it shouldn't be a situation where we as the state allow these insurance companies to get off the hook on this thing. So, I understand that they don't want to write maybe hurricane force winds, and I get that, but we could actually have some conversation around this cyclonic wind, and I think it would really make it more actuarially sound as we move along.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate you. So next, we are going to go into our closing statements. Each one of you will get 5 minutes for your closing statements. And we are going to start with Ed, Travis, and then Dennis for the closing statements, please.
Well, it's great to be with everyone today, and always exciting to talk about the next legislative session and what we're going to be looking forward to. In many cases, I don't think we actually know what we're going to be looking at. There's a lot of discussion around what the legislature is going to look like next time. And I think it's important that, as we move forward, that we have those opportunities to have input into that, because I know, for example, Brazoria County Days, which is something that I've participated in many, many times before I ever became a legislator, and Pearland Days are two things that everyone looks forward to, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to have those this session. Right now, there's a lot of discussion around what that's going to look like, what our committees are going to look like, what our committee hearings will look like. So there's a lot of things that still need to be discussed and still need to be worked through as we move into this next legislative session. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done in the since I've been in the legislature, going back to when we were elected in 2012. One of the things that we've worked on is the Blue Ridge landfill. Many people on the west side of Pearland, sort of in the northwest part of our district, were having problems with the Blue Ridge landfill. And the landfill is not actually in House District 29, but we were hearing from a lot of folks in our district, and we worked very, very hard. In fact, we have a timeline on my website. If you go to edthompson29.com, there's a timeline there showing we've worked on this for over 3 years with TCQ and with Republic, the company that owns Blue Ridge, working to try and resolve issues at that landfill. And it's one of those things that I'm a very constituent-oriented representative. I spend my time in the district working on district issues and problems, things that do have an impact on my constituents, just like the transportation part of it that I was talking about earlier with 288, the frontage roads and those sorts of things. Those are all important to people, and that's what the flood infrastructure that we worked on in the last session. Those are things that are important to people, and I think it's important that we continue to have those conversations around the quality of life type issues that people are looking for. And as long as I'm in the legislature, I'll continue to represent House District 29. I don't have an agenda to talk about things that don't have a lot of effect on our district. Those are things that many times are really not of any value, in my opinion. And we need to concentrate on educating our kids, on developing economic development, on roads, on good education in our community. And those are the things that we'll continue to work on and continue to work for. The other thing we did, and I think, we got a lot of opportunities to help people during this COVID-19 pandemic with the Texas Workforce Commission. We helped hundreds of people, not only people from House District 29, but people from all over the state. We had an opportunity they were calling our office and asking for help. And with the help of Liz Sitta, my legislative director, and Molly Wilson, my chief of staff, we work closely with Texas Workforce to help people, recover from this unemployment. We've got a lot of those people that are back to work, and they've had opportunities to now find another job. And so we're seeing our unemployment numbers drop. So that's also another thing that we want to try and work on, is to make sure that we continue to provide those workforce opportunities here in our community, working with our schools to get kids out of school that have the trades that they need. If they don't want to go to college, that they can actually go into the workforce. So those are the things we'll continue to work on, things we'll continue to concentrate on. And I love serving House District 29. I love serving our community, and I look forward to continuing to serve in the Texas legislature. I appreciate your vote, appreciate everyone's support. Everyone's been so good. If you need a yard sign, you can send me Ed at edthompson29.com, and we'll get one in your yard. So thank y'all. God bless.
Thank you so much, Ed. Next, Travis, if you'd please give us your closing statements, 5 minutes or less, please.
Thanks so much, Sasha, and thanks to the Chamber for hosting this great event. Thanks to Ed and Dennis for making themselves available and joining me here. If anybody remembers one thing about me in this election, I want them to remember that I run a small business which focuses on healthcare, and I have the first-hand experience necessary to solve the healthcare crisis that we're in. If you got space to remember two things, remember that we're a grassroots organization that doesn't take money from big corporations. And that's one of the key differences between me and my opponent. Is that while I'm 90% of every dollar that we bring in comes from an individual's pocket, 60% of my opponent gets piped in from super PACs, from corporations, and from dark money sources out of state. We are a movement from the people, and that's who I'm here to represent. I think Mr. Thompson's is telling when he says that he's not interested in focusing on things that he doesn't see as any value to the district. And perhaps that's why he's voted down expansion of healthcare services every time they've come up on his plate, because he doesn't see those firsthand troubles that each and every one of us are facing. Or maybe it's because he's got $50,000 that have flown into his pocket from the insurance corporations. We need to make sure that we have representation that speaks for the people here in Pearland. We need leaders that we can trust and know that they're working for us and not special interests. My name's Travis Bolts. I'm running as the Democrat for state representative here. If you live in Pearland, Alvin, Manville, or Northern Brazoria County, and you're tired of the way that your state is handling your healthcare issues, is dealing with the economic recovery, I'm your candidate. My website is travisfortexas.com. That's Travis, the number 4, TX.com. That's also my handle on all the social media platforms, and I'd love to make sure that we get you involved. We are running a COVID-safe volunteer program that helps make sure that we're able to get this message out and still be conscious of not spreading the disease in our community. That's something that we very much need to make sure is a priority, as the disease is still, and as we enter flu season and the temperatures drop, we're still looking at increasing the disease where if we're not careful. It's one of the reasons why I'm so disappointed that my opponent has failed to take COVID precautions in his campaign events and still continues to host large, maskless, in-person events. I'm also disappointed that this is going to be the only opportunity that y'all have to see us side by side, because Mr. Thompson has failed to engage at the Pearland Youth Movement Forum. He's not engaging me tomorrow at the NAACP Forum. He's refused to fill out the League of Women Voters questionnaire. And he tonight had an opportunity to join me on NPR and face-to-face answer the same questions where they would ask us about these things that are important to the everyday voters, like healthcare, like COVID, like criminal justice reform, and how we move Texas forward in the next century. So my name's Travis Bolt. I ask you humbly for your vote and your support, and I'll see y'all on the other side of this. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you, Travis. With that said, I just want to remind that this is going to be also posted on the Pearland Chamber's Facebook page. If there are any questions as you're watching this you want to ask the candidates, you can post there as well as our candidates can respond to anything there as well. So Dennis, I'll ask you to go on with your closing statements, 5 minutes or less, please.
Thank you a lot, Sasha. I shouldn't take that long. Thanks a lot for you, sir, for your efforts today and your hard work today. Carol, thanks for all that you do in our community. You're always a stalwart for everything that goes on in Pearland. And Mark, thanks you for your hard work and your year here at the Chamber and all that you do for your community. Thank y'all. Same with you, Cheryl, for all that you've done. Always getting comments from you about what's going on at the Chamber. Thank you. And again, thanks Ed and Travis for being here today too. I just want to say quickly, close it out here, that we look forward to coming up to the next session and solving issues that we want to have in front of us. How are we going to deal with the pandemic? How are we going to deal with the short budget shortfall? How are we going to deal with redistricting? Making sure that you have a senior member there to make sure it goes through these redistricting troubles. How are you going to get through the issues that we need to get down for our coastal protection and our flooding issues? These are all issues that I've led on, issues that I'm knowledgeable about, and issues that we're going to be able to take care of. You want to make sure you have your best person forward to get these things done. I'm the guy that can be able to stand there for Texas. Last session, we passed 16 bills that the governor signed into law. So we know how to get it done. We know how to make it work. And we look forward to serving you, serving all of Texas and all of our community. So again, thanks a lot for all of y'all. Thanks to what y'all do. God bless Texas. God bless District 129. Thank y'all very much.
Well, Dennis, thank you. Thank you all. So next I'd like to do is ask Mark and Carol for your closing statements. Carol, if you would please.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah.
We can hear
Okay.
you.
So thank you so much. I want to thank each candidate that is here today, and of those that are running that aren't here. I thank you for your leadership, for serving the people of our state and of course this district. I thank you for sticking your head out, for the courageous battles that you fight to represent those people. I commend you for that. And I hope that you will continue to amplify your voice, win or lose, because the people need you to represent them. And with that, I will say thank you for being here today and thank the audience for listening.
Thank you, Carol. Next, hopefully, Mark, your microphone is a little better. If you could please, let's try it. Give your closing statements.
Well, can you hear me? No.
Can hear you. No? All right. A thumbs up.
It was good.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for your time. We know that it's precious. Again, I'm Sasha Costa, local business owner and also board member at the Pearland Chamber of Commerce, Grit Realty, and the Media Heroes. So we will go ahead and